Being here. First of all, I'd like to introduce to you Anthony Voci, who is the supervisor of the office's homicide unit. That unit now covers shootings in which there is injury to anyone. It's a change that we made several months ago, so Mr. Voci is in charge of cases such as the Maurice Hill case, and he will be directing that activity. I'd also like to introduce you to Leandro Retacco, that's R-E-T-A-C-C-O, who is the chief of our charging unit and was very heavily involved in supervising the bringing of charges in this matter. And I also want to introduce you to the good people of the DA's office, many of whom are here because of their keen interest in this case and achieving justice in this case. There is limited information that we can provide today, more limited than we might have hoped, to be honest with you, and that is because the volume of information, the quantity of investigation is so enormous in this case in terms of things as simple as digging out all the bullets or as sweeping as the number of body cameras involved. And as a consequence, we have to be very careful not to step on the activity of the Philadelphia Police Department and also not to step on what may happen down the road with the case in light of the fact that charges are pending. Nevertheless, there are some things that we can say and we will say. Okay, so there are two things we certainly can accomplish. We want to give you an update on the charging status of Maurice Hill, and we also want to let you know what you can expect in the coming weeks and months from this office. First, Maurice Hill, whose birth date is April 26th of 1983, a point I stress because there are 5, as I counted, Maurice Hills who are listed with a record in Philadelphia, and there has been some inaccurate information out there about which one is the one who is charged in this case. The correct one is Maurice Hill with a birth date of April 26, 1983. He has been charged as follows. He is the one responsible for the standoff, and these are the charges. As to the officers who were actually shot, he has been charged with attempted murder, which is a first-degree felony, assault on a law enforcement officer, first-degree felony, aggravated assault, first-degree felony, simple assault, second-degree misdemeanor, and reckless endangerment of another person, second-degree misdemeanor. There are some officers who were fired upon but actually escaped the house where this occurred, and in those cases, Mr. Hill is charged with attempt murder, F1, assault of a law enforcement officer, aggravated assault, also an F1, reckless endangerment. For the officers who were shot at but held captive inside of the home in the 3700 block of North 5th Street, attempt murder, assault of a law enforcement officer, ag assault, simple assault, reckless endangerment of another person, but also unlawful restraint, which is a second-degree misdemeanor. As for the civilians who were held captive in the home in the 3700 block of North 5th, we have violations of the Uniform Firearms Act, a number of them, including a first-degree felony. We have causing or risking a catastrophe, which is a third-degree felony, possession of an instrument of crime, first-degree misdemeanor, simple assault, second-degree misdemeanor. We also have reckless endangerment and unlawful restraint, which is, again, a second-degree misdemeanor. There are people charged with narcotics offenses in this case, and they are charged with possession with the intent to deliver as a first-degree felony, conspiracy as a second-degree felony, possession of drugs, paraphernalia charges, and also there's a charge of possession of marijuana. The narcotics that we know of at this time include barbiturates, and also they include marijuana. Mr. Hill has an extensive criminal record. He has a court date coming up, and his court date coming up is on September the 5th in courtroom 306 for a preliminary hearing. The defendants who are charged with drug offenses have a different court date at this time. They are either having a date on the 3rd of September, or in the case of a couple of them who got sent first to courtroom 404, they will be joined up for a court date on the 3rd of September. Obviously, these dates are subject to change, and often a first listing, especially in a case of this magnitude, may result in some level of delay. Every person in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office and I understands that the city is reeling from what happened last week. This is not just a factually complicated case, but it's a case that is still under investigation. It is an investigation that we need, and we will get right in partnership with our fellow law enforcement agencies. It's going to take time. It could take months, but it will be done correctly. And so I want you here today and the public to know that we might not be in the news talking about the investigation all the time, but we are continuing to work to build this case so it can be brought to court. When we are done and ready to proceed to court, we will let you know. But right now we have a job to do, and that job is to complete our investigation. I would now like to take an opportunity to present Anthony Voci, who will provide some details, at least the ones that we can at this point, about the investigation itself, and then I will have some concluding remarks. Mr. Voci?
Thank you. As the district attorney mentioned a moment ago, there are a number of things that have to be done over the next couple of months, and I think months is probably an accurate description of how long it's going to take. The scale of this investigation at this point literally is immeasurable. You are talking about over 100 rounds of ammunition that was fired, and when you talk about a bullet being fired, there's two pieces to that bullet. There's the fired cartridge casing, and then there's also the bullet and the bullet fragments. We are in the process of digging those out of cars and structures like houses, ceilings, walls. That process is extremely time-consuming. There's over 250 body-worn cameras and the footage from those cameras that has to be processed. There are cameras that were in the neighborhood, such as Ring doorbell cameras and other types of cameras that people installed in their homes. That footage has to be harvested, reviewed, processed. It's going to be an extensive investigation that, again, will take months. And that is why it would be premature to talk about any and all the details as it relates to these charges, because it's our anticipation that there will be more based on what we see on the film and what we find throughout the investigation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Voci. We once again want to thank the mayor and especially the police commissioner and the Philadelphia Police Department for their heroic handling of this shooting incident. After it started, they were patient, they were tactically brilliant, they were courageous, and the outcome here, terrible though it was, is so much better than it might have been, that we need to remember that these officers and this commissioner deserve tremendous credit for that. Thank you all. We will be able to answer more questions at a later time.
Can you just say the total number of people you're charging?